Healthy Holiday Nutrition Series. Whether you are here for a workshop or a cooking demonstration, get ready to experience a fun, interactive, and educational session. This evening, you will get nutritional tools and cooking tips for you and your family on how to enjoy the holiday season while maintaining your wellness goals. Welcome to
Again, welcome and thank you for joining us for our Healthy Holiday Nutrition series. My name is Savannah Nielsen, and I am a Health and Wellness Assistant with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen like you see here on the screen. You will need to click this icon to mute yourself. We would ask that you remain muted to limit any distractions during the program. Next, I want to draw your attention to the camera icon. You will use this to turn your camera off and on. Please be mindful that when your camera is on, all participants joining us this evening will be able to see your screen. You have the option to keep your camera on or turn it off, but remember we want to minimize distractions throughout the program and keep the focus on the presentation being provided. Next, I would like to show you how to pin a participant. To do this, you will need to click on the Show Participants icon. In the Participants column, select the individual you want to view on your screen. Then click or tap the three dots icon to reveal a menu. From the drop-down menu, select Pin for Me. The pin participant becomes a focus in your view and only your view. Regardless of the speaker, to unpin. Regardless of speaker, to unpin, repeat these three steps and select Unpin. Repeat the same process to pin an additional participant. Please note if you're on a web browser, the PowerPoint presentation will be in a smaller window at the top or bottom of your screen. Next, I would like to draw your attention to another Teams feature. You can also turn on live closed captions during the meeting. To do this, you will click on the three dots for more options. Then you can scroll down and find the option that says Turn on Live Captions. Then you will start to see captions at the bottom of your screen. You may choose to turn this feature on if needed. The last icon I'm going to tell you about is the chat icon. This will allow you to ask questions throughout the program. The type of question, you will just click on the icon like the one you see here on the screen to bring up the chat box, and it should take you to what you see next. So once you see the chat box, as you see on the screen here, there will be a space for you to type in your question, hit enter, and we will see your question on the screen. Please ask your questions throughout the program, and there will be time at the end to answer your questions. We're looking forward to a great discussion. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our trained professional for the evening. Melanie Burdick is a registered dietitian, licensed dietitian nutritionist, certified diabetes care and education specialist, and a certified specialist in obesity and weight management, and a certified personal trainer. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics from Eastern Michigan University and a Master's of Science in Applied Nutrition from the University of New England. She believes in practical steps to improving health and wellness, where no foods are off limits. Welcome, Melanie. Hi.
Thank you,
Passing it
Savannah.
over.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Savannah. I appreciate that wonderful welcome. And I'm just going to pause here a minute and I am going to open up my presentation for everyone and we'll go ahead and jump in. So thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Go. Bear with me here. Get it all squared away. Wonderful. And while that's doing its thinking, again, I am Melanie Burdick. I'm a registered dietitian at Giant Food, and I am actually based in the Baltimore area. And we have our healthy living team at Giant. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the services that we provide at the end of the presentation tonight. And tonight, we're going to talk all about using some of our favorite kitchen gadgets, especially as we've been doing a lot of cooking and just got through Thanksgiving. So I'm sure you're probably thinking about what could I do differently for the next couple of holidays as we wrap up the year. So let me know in the chat. Are you a slow cooker fan? Do you love to have a crock pot? Or are you a big fan of the Instant Pot? Or have you been thinking about purchasing either one of these gadgets in the future? So let me know in the chat. I'm a big fan of the crock pot, but I've heard wonderful things about the Instant Pot. One thing that I haven't purchased yet. So let me know if you're using any of these gadgets in your kitchen right now. Take a look at the chat. No one. feel free at any time to throw anything, any of your thoughts into the chat. And so tonight, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about a little bit of history when it comes to the crock pot and Instapot. And Janice, it sounds like you'd like to use it a little bit more. Well, hopefully after today, you'll have some inspiration. Julia loves her crock pot. Oh, wonderful. Such a great tool. So we'll talk about the history of the crock pot Instapot. It's actually really fascinating. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the different features that are available on these wonderful kitchen gadgets. And then we'll also talk about some holiday recipe inspiration. So I'm sure you're probably thinking about your kitchen. I'm thinking about my kitchen during Thanksgiving. And what I love to do is how to streamline the amount of things in the oven. And so this might be where a crock pot or Instapot comes into play. All right. There we go. All right. So let's talk just briefly about crock pot or Instapot. Now, I know a lot of us, myself included, grew up using a crock pot. We had one, I think my parents still have it from the 1980s. I think it was brown or green. And it was definitely a staple in our kitchen. So let me know if you grew up with a crock pot in your house in your childhood. But what's really interesting is that the crock pot story actually started at the beginning of the 19th century in Lithuania. So who knew that there was such a history to the crock pot? And what actually got this started was actually Jewish families that were living in this area. What they would do in order to prepare for the Sabbath or their day of rest, they would actually prepare their stews, their beans, and vegetables, and they would prepare them prior to this, maybe Thursday or Friday. And then what they would do, they would take all of their ingredients and they would actually take them to the local bakery that still had the hot ovens that were still at several hundred degrees. And then that would actually slowly cook their food overnight. And then they would have their meal ready to go. So that was sort of the inspiration for the crock pot. And actually, the crock pot was developed by a gentleman named Irving Natchison. And he actually learned about this in his childhood from some of his family members. And they would use the slow cooker, in the summertime to help minimize the heat in their kitchen. And so what he actually decided to do, he applied for a patent in the late 1930s. And actually in 1940, he was granted it. And so we know that the crock pot really came into the trending kitchen gadget world in about the 1950s. But then in the 1970s, that's when it really took storm. And so this was a great way to truly set it and forget it. Make your stews, your meats, and especially for busy working families, this was a great invention. So we'll fast forward into the early 2000s or so. And an individual named Robert Wang, he was actually a computer scientist. He actually was inspired by the crock pot. His parents used it in his childhood, but he thought, hey, there has to be an easier way for busy working individuals to have a quicker meal and not have to worry about preparing things, 8 or 10 hours in the morning before leaving for the office day. And so what he decided to do, now this gentleman, very intelligent, a PhD in computer science, he developed the Instapot. And it took about 18 months to go from his first drawings to his patent. And it actually first came available, let's go back a couple of years. It was available on Amazon in 2010. And this really took the world by storm. And so if anyone isn't familiar with an Instapot, basically what this is, it's an electric pressure cooker that has a variety of functions. So, which really sets it apart from a rice cooker or a slow cooker. An Instapot can do a variety of different things. It can cook rice. It can act as a crock pot. It can be a great way to warm or sanitize items as well. It's also great for making cakes or pastries, and you can even cook eggs in your Instapot as well. There also are settings for sauteing and of course making rice or pasta as well too. So this is a great option for people that want multiple options when it comes to cooking and not all of those individual gadgets in their kitchen. So let me know if anyone's using an Instapot at home. Let me know in the chat. I've heard lots of wonderful things from individuals over the last few years. So lots of options when it comes to the Instapot. So, is it really worth it? Is it worth it to have multiple gadgets in your kitchen? Well, depending on what your lifestyle goals are and your favorite type of cooking, or maybe you prefer to, minimize the amount of prep in your kitchen, an Instapot or a crock pot may be a great option. Maybe this is a Christmas gift for someone. And so this is a really great way, again, to be able to cook more meals at home, save time, and truly set it and forget it, which is nice. And when it comes to either one of these gadgets, we have a one pot cleanup, which is really, really nice. And again, this allows for having wonderful balanced meals. And we're going to walk through in the next couple of slides really some of the key ingredients to use when you're using these items to have these wonderful balanced meals at home. Perfect. So we're going to walk through, really the how-to guide when it comes to making meals in a slow cooker. And again, these are great components, especially as we're preparing for Christmas and other holiday parties as well. And so if you're thinking, well, which one could I use in my kitchen? Well, crock pot is a great option if you have time and you don't mind having things cook over 6 to 8 hours. An Instant Pot is great for someone who just wants to have a meal in less than an hour. So that's a great way to differentiate between the two gadgets. But let's talk about what are the great components that we need to have to make wonderful meals. So when we think about using a slow cooker, we want to make sure that we have a variety of staples available. And these are great items. I'm sure many of us have these in our pantry right now. These might be on our shopping list for the holidays. And of course, if we're using a slow cooker, we want to make sure that we have some sort of liquid for moisture, so low sodium chicken broth, lots of flavor and aromatics from onions and garlics, and then maybe a nice, wonderful protein like beans or lentils. And then adding in, of course, our vegetables. We can do fresh, frozen, or canned. And then having one of our wonderful whole grain staples like brown rice or wild rice or quinoa. So these are items, again, they're budget friendly, they have a long shelf life, and can be used in a variety of different ways when it comes to making your meals. All right. So let's go through the step-by-step process when you're thinking about building a meal. Now, oftentimes, meal planning, getting a meal on the table can feel stressful, but we will make it super easy this evening. And so one of the first things that we want to do is when we're thinking about our meal, of course, we want to preheat our slow cooker or Instapot to make sure that we're getting it at the right temperature. And the one thing that we want to do as well is we want to make sure that we're avoiding anything that's frozen too, because that will take a lot longer for that item to come to its cooking temperature as well. And so we want to think about our protein. When we think about a nice balanced meal, we want to have some type of protein, some type of grain, and some type of vegetable. So step number one, when you're thinking about preparing your meals, could be saying, okay, is it going to be a lean chicken breast? Is it going to be beef or pork? Or could it be something like beans or lentils? So having that wonderful protein. And then our next step is we want to add in that whole grain or those starchy items. So of course it could be barley, it could be wild rice, quinoa, potatoes, you name it. And I'm getting hungry just thinking about what I might put together in my crock pot. So a great example might be beef tipped with barley if you're making a beef stew. Or maybe you're making something like pork and sauerkraut or pork and potatoes. Those would be the first two steps when it comes to putting your items in the crock pot. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're getting plenty of produce when it comes to our meals. And so we want to make sure that we load up on our items, but we want to also be sure that we don't completely fill the crock pot or Instapot. We want to make sure that there's a little bit of room to allow those items to cook properly. So whether you have frozen, canned, or fresh items, these are all great. So pull out, your bag of your vegetables for a soup mix. add them with your barley and your beef tips with a little bit of chicken broth, and then you're good to go. So when you're thinking about your recipes, making sure that you have those items readily available, and then you also have any type of liquid. So again, using beef, chicken, or vegetable broth, and anyone who's concerned about blood pressure or the sodium in their meals, you can always opt for those lower sodium varieties like we have here highlighted on the screen. It's a great way to save hundreds of milligrams of sodium as well. All right. And then the last thing we want to think about when we're making our meals is, of course, we want to have flavor. We want to have that pizzazz. And there are a lot of ways that we can have this flavor and streamline our meals. Now, we also want to be careful when we're using any of these different items that we are aware of the sodium content as it can vary. So, of course, we're in the land of McCormick, and so they make it very easy for us. You can actually pick up some packets of seasoning, the chicken masala or the chili seasoning, and add that to your ingredients. Also, Campbell's are making sealed packets of flavoring ready to go with a sauce. They're made specifically for the crock pot or the skillet as well. So great, real quick ways that you can have a wonderful meal and have that flavor. And then also using any of your other favorite seasonings, McCormick Perfect Pinch, Mrs. Dash, or any of your other favorite herbs and spices. All right. Now let's think about the holidays. So coming up in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have Christmas and New Year's, and think back to Thanksgiving. Think about how busy your kitchen was. Utilizing your slow cooker, Instapot could be a really great way just to make things so much easier and have less of that traffic backup at your oven. And so if you're looking for inspiration for the holidays or ideas for using a crock pot or an Instapot, definitely check out our Savory magazine. Again, this is the current edition. It's available in stores and online. If you shop on, or if you are reading the magazine online, there's actually wonderful collections available for Instant Pot recipes and also slow cooker or crock pot meal collections. So if you're looking for some different ideas, I highly recommend checking out those items as well. There's also an option if you're searching for recipes, you can click on the cooking method, and that will also filter your items as well. And so let's talk about some inspiration for the holidays. Last week we talked about having some wonderful mocktail inspiration. Well, here are some great ways that you can have a wonderful recipe in your crock pot for the holidays. So maybe it's making a mulled spider, or in my house, we would have a wonderful spice cider. We would put it into the crock pot, and then it would slowly cook over several hours, and it created this wonderful apple and cinnamon fragrance in the house. So it's perfect for the holidays. Also, too, turkey and stuffing. We can make our staple protein in the crock pot as well, too. So utilizing some of these recipes can really save time and stress. And then also, too, if you're making any type of gravy or any vegetable side dish, there are lots of great items. And who would have thought, you can do green beans right in the crock pot, just like you would, in the stove. So really some easy ways to utilize any of these kitchen gadgets and just make cooking so much easier in your for your holidays. Also, too, this is great if you're going to a party as well. You can cook your items and then transport them in the crock pot. That way they stay warm and they'll be ready for your holiday gathering. Now, I wanted to walk through in the next couple of slides just some really easy recipes that you can utilize on a daily basis and have a wonderful recipe in no time. So here's how easy it can be. So this is for the Instapot. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Instapot has a variety of different functions, and you'll see on the recipes, it'll recommend whether you should use the saute or the pressure function. And so this is pork ragu. So think how easy this is to make. Pork shoulder, olive oil, our vegetables, so our onion and garlic, those aromatics that I mentioned earlier, red wine, crushed tomatoes, and then of course, making sure you have that liquid, your chicken broth, and then salt and pepper and your different spices. put that all together and you have your recipe in no time at all. So 2 hours, you have a meal that's ready for the table. So it's as easy as that. And again, it follows that recipe that I mentioned earlier, your protein, your vegetable, your liquid, and then your spices as well. So a great option for the Instapot. All right, so here is another option that we can use using the Instapot. We could also do this in the crock pot as well. Of course, it would take a little bit more time. Of course, we're going to have the spring green risotto. We have our onion and garlic, our chicken, our asparagus, peas, and a wonderful pesto for the sauce. And then just a little bit of lemon juice to add in that moisture. Again, mix it all together, let it prep in 2 hours, and you are good to go. So this is wonderful because you can saute your items, the onion and garlic, and then add all your different ingredients after that as well. So 2 hours and meals are ready to rock. All right, and oh, I'm just gonna pause here just a moment. I'm getting a little bit of background noise. I'm just gonna make sure everyone's muted. And again, here is another great option. So if you have any family members that are coming over for the holidays, you can use your slow cooker for breakfast. And I always think, oatmeal or stews in the crock pot. Well, actually, we can do breakfast tacos as well. So super, super simple. So we can make this in no time, just using eggs, milk, our chili powder, avocados, our tortillas, and then of course, shredded cheese and salsa. So we can prep all of these items in the crock pot and we have breakfast ready in an hour and a half. Super, super simple. We could also do something like overnight oats. We could get them started in the crock pot overnight, put them on a low setting. And then when we wake up in 6 to 8 hours, we have breakfast ready to go. So very, very easy. And just some other creations. Not only do we want to use crock pots or any of our kitchen gadgets during the holiday season, but we also want to think about how we can streamline our meals throughout the year. So if we're looking for other options, like I mentioned earlier, we can have overnight oats. I love this because you wake up and the house smells so, so wonderful. We can also do something like soaked beans or lentils. That's a great way to have them rehydrate overnight. We could also make any of our favorite soups. And this is one of my favorite things about the crock pot. I throw all my ingredients together and it's ready in no time, especially chicken tortilla soup like we have here. What I love to do at home, I open up all of my different cans. I use canned vegetables with broth and I add in my cooked chicken. I'll let it marinate and it's good to go. And then other things as well. So we have our pot roast. We can do pork, chicken or turkey, and we're adding our favorite vegetables, and we're good to go. And then also too, think about how you can streamline your dessert process. Could you make something like poached pears or apples or stewed apples for the holidays? A little bit of cinnamon. Again, you have a better for you treat that couldn't be any easier to make as well too. So lots of inspiration when it comes to making these slow cooker or Instapot meals. Right. And I'm going to pause here. I don't see any chatter in the chat. Wonderful. So as we wrap up today, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that are available as we start 2023 at Giant, our Healthy Living team. We are offering our Healthier Together program that will actually start in January, and it's a great way to get inspiration for the new year. So if you're thinking about maybe I should do more cooking at home, or maybe I should think about balancing my plate, we can assist you with that, no problem. If you're interested in joining us, you can scan the QR code and it'll take you to our registration page. We'd love to have you. Right. And then lastly, too, know that there are lots of wonderful free services available at Giant. Again, our Healthy Living team, our goal is to make life easier. We want to have cooking be a fun experience, but not too difficult and better for you. So we are here to assist in any way possible. So we have additional classes that are available online. We also do individual consultations or store tours. And so if that's something that you're interested, maybe you're looking for some ideas for some meal inspiration, we'd be happy to chat with you or take you through the store and find those items that meet your needs. And then we're also on social media. We're on Facebook and TikTok. I highly recommend checking out TikTok. My colleagues, Angela and Tu, have some really cute videos that are all about health and wellness. And then, of course, we have our Healthy Living by Giant podcast. Just another great way to get healthy living inspiration. Our most recent podcast was Try Something New for Fall. So, highlighting all of the new products that are available in the aisles right now. So, definitely something for everyone. Oh, great. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, any thoughts. I hope this brings some inspiration for you when it comes to setting your meals and forgetting it. Again, we can have wonderful meals at home with minimal stress and minimal prep. And there's nothing like coming home to a meal that's all ready to go for you. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free at any time. You can always email healthyliving@giantfood.com. We are always happy to assist. Oh, wonderful. Yes, interesting history when it comes to our kitchen gadgets. I know I never thought about it until I started doing the research, and I thought, wow, somebody was very inquisitive to go ahead and invent something that millions of people use every single day. Which is pretty fascinating to learn about where it comes from. All right. Well, awesome. If there's anyone doesn't have any other thoughts or questions, I'll turn it back over to Savannah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll see if anyone else puts any comments in there, and if so, I'll turn it back to you because we got a few minutes here. But thank you so much. That was really awesome. And also, like, I'll say whenever I come home, I haven't personally used the crock pot, or I have to make mac and cheese, but that's it. But whenever I come home after like my mom makes something in the crock pot, like the smells are just like the best.
It's like a welcome home. There's just something really comforting about it. So absolutely a great gadget to use really all year round.
For sure. Yeah. I love crock pot meals. Well, yeah, if there's no more questions, I just have a few announcements. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you again, Melanie, for the great presentation. So we want your feedback. Complete the survey in 24 hours to be entered into a drawing for a health and wellness gift bag. And please join us Wednesday, December 14th for our next session, cranberry stuffing and medley root vegetables cooking demonstration from 6 to 7 p.m. And there is also an in-person cooking demonstration, which is mashed sweet potato cobbler and holiday parfait at Southern Area Aquatics and Recreation Complex on December 16th from 6 to 7 p.m. And you can register to join through pgparksdirect.com. And yeah, that's basically all. Thank you again for joining us, and everyone have a wonderful evening.